Hello, everyone. I am Nora McKenzie, member of the Business Reference and Academic Libraries Committee for BRASS, and also the co-chair of the Symposium Subcommittee, alongside my fabulous colleagues, my co-chair, Christy Cunningham, and the other subcommittee members, Angel Truesdale, Brian Garrison-Wynn, and Doris Dewey. All of our sessions today and yesterday have been recorded, and they will be sent out to everybody who's registered. If you haven't already, please go ahead and mute your audio and your video as we get started. Thank you so much for spending these 2 wonderful days with Brass and all of our presenters today. And now I would like to turn it over to my colleague, Christy, who will get us started.
Okay, thank you all for attending. And we are ending with the legendary Jennifer Boettcher. And she will be discussing business trends and outlook survey, conditions and predictions. Take it away, Jennifer.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And Christy is monitoring chat. I cannot see chat. I will try to stop at least 2 times in this session in case you have questions. But I would like her to right now put in chat the links to the slides, because these are very, very dense slides, and I'm not going to be reading them. So hopefully you will be able to, if you find something you say, oh, I want to go back to that, you'll have that. And they will also be with the recording, the slides as well. Census Bureau still has money. Woohoo! Still has wonderful people working at it. And I'm being joined, actually, I think some of them are here today with me. I normally talk about the economic census, but during COVID, they started something that was just amazing, and it got better. And it's now called the Business Trends and Outlook Surveys. And what do I mean by conditions and predictions? It's timely. The last data that was come out was March the 20th. I mean, the data is current data. It's released every 2 weeks with a 2 weeks delay, so about a week or a month old. And it's consistent. 26 questions or 25 questions, or actually more than that now. And throughout this time period. And what time period am I talking about? We'll talk about that. Geography. You can get this data, all of these questions for all of this frequency for the US, for the states, DC, Puerto Rico's, and the 25 most populous MSAs. And that it's down at the sector level. And if you don't know what that is, and subsector level, there's be a brief information about that. And you can access this through, they have some visualizations on their webpage, which, to tell you the truth, are not as good as they used to be. The downloads is where I like to talk about, and that's where I'm going to be talking a lot about it. They also have APIs. It's also in the micro data. The micro data is in the Federal Statistical Research Data Centers. There's usually one per state. Some of you may have them in your universities. So if you say, I want to have the subsector data by this MSA, you'll have to go to the center to get that data. But you could get so much. To performance, how a business is performed, the hours, the supply chain, the use of artificial intelligence, work from home data, weather. How did weather affect businesses in your MSA or in your state? These things are just amazingly there. And when I say that first column, the way that's indented, it says in the last 2 weeks, what was it like? And in the next 6 weeks, what do you think? Or next a couple or more weeks, what do you think it's going to be? So it's not only what's going on now, but what they're predicting. So I'm going to be going, this is my table of contents. I only have 45 minutes. Hi, I'm Jennifer Boettcher. And a lot of you may not know this, but I was an art history major, was my undergraduates. And then I worked in a museum, and I realized I wasn't going to make much money, so I worked for a library. And there is my contact information down there. I'm on Blue Sky. I'm not as active, or and LinkedIn. I'm not as active on social media, but hopefully this summer I'll get back into it. My research agenda is basically government information, particularly related to the North American Industry Classification System, but I've written on many other things. And then that is a great link to get to a free open access book about data quality literacy that I co-edited, did very little. You all know who you are, who did all that great work. And the zombie list is still active, and I'm still recruiting volunteers to do that. So before we get into the data, let's talk about intellectual property. Intellectual property is very important when you are looking at data. This data is in the federal government. It is public domain data. You could use it, you could cite it, you could use it, you could download it, you could incorporate it, you could put it in whatever you want. Yes, it's public domain, but we still ask you to give attribution to that. So attribution for public domain data is still very important. And then what goes into a data citation, who's responsible for the data? In this case, would be the Census Bureau. What was the title of the program? Business Trends and Outlet Survey. What is the FIA title? What was the retrieval date? And what is the URL? Remember, it's enough information so that you can get to it again. If somebody else says, where did I get that? I'm talking about high frequency data, which means data that comes out regularly. There are, and all of these are links to places where you can get all higher level data or high frequency data. Some of this data started back in a while ago, some of it 2019. Some of it only covers like all of the industries, not just one industry or one sector. And some of it covers like all of the US, some of it goes down deeper. So these are all places that you can go to find this big thing. But what we're going to be talking about is the Business Trends and Outlook Survey. And they are trying to cover all businesses. But to tell you the truth, there is a bias towards the smaller businesses, not the multinational businesses. But that's pretty good because that's what a lot of people are concerned about. So my normal NAICS stuff, the North American Industry Classification System, it's designed to collect data, not to identify companies. So here's the industry. What's the automobile industry? There is not one data sector that is the automobile industry. It is all of these different sectors, depending upon what the industry that you're trying to do. So if you're doing a reference question for somebody and they say, oh, I want to do something in the clothing industry. Are we talking about manufacturing or retail? So be specific when you start giving that reference interview. And why does that matter? Because the Business Trends and Outlook Survey, or BTOS, is what I'll probably be using it. It is not a boy band, the BTOS. It's only at the subsector data level. So even if you wanted to know about automobile manufacturing, the data you're going to get is the transportation equipment manufacturing. So only at that 3-digit or subsector level data, but it's better than just the sector data, right? Not all manufacturing. Let's look at clothing manufacturing. Let's look at transportation manufacturing. Let's look at food manufacturing. So let's quickly go over, let's whet your appetite. I've been talking about how wonderful this is. Why is this wonderful? Is because you can get data visualizations like this, where we're looking at index numbers, and I'm going to talk briefly about indexes at the end, where we're looking and we're comparing what is the current and what is the predictive information. So over here, current versus future. And you're going to see sometimes that the current is looking better than the future. And sometimes, actually, in a lot of stuff I looked at, the current data, the expectations of future performance is going to be a little bit different. This was collected. This image came from Corey, who may be on this talk. But he did this presentation back in 2022. This is something that I just put together this past week. about the public transportation manufacturing, that 3-digit NAICS code. And then, so we have in the last 2 weeks, which is the current, and then the orange in the next 6 months. So you could see there isn't always correlation, but the prices, and the question here is the prices, the input prices into your business. Do you believe this will change? Of course it's going to change. And here we have 80% of the people, of the owners that were asked about transportation equipment manufacturing, will this change? And 80% of the people asked this question said, yep. Other questions could be like, did the extreme weather affect your monetary losses? And here we have data actually done by the size of a company. So the smaller companies were affected by weather, and particularly hurricanes, because tornadoes are up here, hurricanes are here. And in 24, 26, this would be November of last year, that businesses were affected by hurricanes. This is national data, the employee size. Here's the reference, an APA, an example of what you should write in a note, and then what you should cite your data and how you should cite your data. Now you can data visualizations. Oh my God. I'm not great on data visualization, so I have created so many different kinds here. And then here, so here we have that same data as this, looking at this in a column, a bar graph. Hurricanes really hit people really hard. And it was October 20th was that date when this was reflected. But there was still high winds, extreme weather, floods were still going on. In October, businesses were still being affected by that. A question here is about work from home, the work from home. And do you, in the last 2 weeks, have your business paid employees to work from home? In Phoenix, they definitely let people work from home. And believe me, temperatures are so high there, you don't want to actually go out in your car. But so if you're a work from home person and you want to go to a place that you could work from home in, go to Phoenix, Denver, or Portland, Washington. But the people actually, this is not all 25 of them. I know there were some lower than, no, that is all 25. New York as of April 6th, the data says that 30% of the New York, Jersey businesses, the New York MSA businesses would let people work from home, which is getting tighter. Here's another data visualization. In the past 2 weeks, did you have a supply chain? This is a supply chain question. In the past 2 weeks, did it take time for this business? How much time did it take for this business to receive deliveries from your suppliers? And what I did is I limited it to retail trade, and I looked at the subsector, and we can see that actually the home furnishing, or actually the gasoline stations, are experiencing a increase problem in getting their supply chain. But most of the retailers are not having a problem at this point. So at this point, the Business Trends and Outlook Survey, the reason why it's every 2 weeks is because they want to say what has changed. And if you don't have a baseline, this is what basically this is doing. It's looking at a baseline to say, okay, something happened. How did it affect this? And so if you don't have a baseline, you don't know that change of what's going on. Performances. So here we have Michigan in November of 24. This data was put together. And here we have Michigan again, but this time the data is from this past month. And we could see that There's still a lot of people who believe it's excellent, but you could see how these trends, like the above average trends, you could see how these numbers are changing. And the people in all businesses, all sectors in Michigan, it's decreasing on the average. So you could look at it from a time, right? Across time, or you can take a point in time, or you could, like in this case, you could take a point in time and look at the whole attitudes, yes, no, good, bad, poor, not. Um, so all of that data is out there. And so I want you to know that, but to realize that because this is so quick, so fast, they welcome estimates, they welcome it guesstimates. So they're subject to non-response bias. Did everybody fill out this survey who got it? Did everybody who was the right person to fill it out, fill it out? And there are also some businesses that are out of scope. And if you have the slides and you click on that, you'll go right to a page that will tell you if something is out of scope. Okay, at this point, Christy, you can put in the second link, which is to the Small Business Pulse Survey. The Small Business Pulse Survey was done when COVID came up, and they were asking these types of questions every single week, not bi-weekly, every single week. A question was posed to say, how was this affected? And so here we have a graph to saying Puerto Rico was definitely affected by the disruption in the supply chain. The Small Business Pulse Survey had 100, and it was only looking at small businesses, not the larger companies. And the BTOS came out of this survey. It looked at sector level data only, state level, and the top MSAs. And the questions varied week by week because they were just designed this, right? They didn't do the normal federal, was it the Federal Register, OMB, was this approved? How about this? Every week they were asking some different questions, some similar questions, but they changed frequently. But it was, if you have anybody looking, if any of your researchers are looking at COVID responses or COVID affecting the economy, the Small Business Pulse Survey is still out there, and it's wonderful. The big thing is to realize when you look at the data, you need to make sure you look at the questionnaire for the data that was available. So the national data, the MSA data, the by size, the NAICS data. So just realize that this data is out there, and it stopped being collected towards the 2022. It stopped in May, or yeah, that's May 2022. So, and you could get to that by the link I gave you. Now, let's talk about the BTOS, the Business Trends and Outlook Survey. When you go to that, if you just Google BTOS or on my site, because I have, as we all know now, that there is when you search Google, it depends on what you have. So when I type in BTOS, it goes to this website, but you may not see that. So to get to this website, type in BTOS Census, and then you'll get to this website. And I'm going to get you to this website, but not till after I talk about why this website is important. It is why you're going to see this slide 2 more times, because it is looking at the business cycles by industry, by location, by sectors, and it's just during the economics, what is normal, but then under emergency, how did this affect this? Look at the California data or the Los Angeles data during the wildfires, and how much are they still affected by those wildfires? Because every 2 weeks, the people respond back to say, are you being affected by weather, and what kind of weather are you being affected by? and you could look that down. Now, I'm going to go a little bit more detailed than here. We have the questions. We have this, like I said, there's 26 questions out there right now. And anything with these two numbers, that this is performance, how is your business condition performing currently in the past 2 weeks, and then predictions in the next 2 weeks. Some of these may be up to for 6 months. So some of these questions, whenever you see two, that means current and current conditions and predictions. So you can get input prices, which is the prices that I use to make my product, and then output prices, which is the prices that as a manufacturer or as a retailer or as a wholesaler, am I going to charge you? I may have a decrease in my input prices, but I'm going to increase my output prices because I know you're going to pay for it. So just things like that. So these are the questions. And then over here under business classifications, those are the different files that you can get. You can get the files by state. The state will also include District of Columbia and Puerto Rico. And then the sector, subsector, and then here is the employment size. So if you only want to look at small businesses, you can combine these, or only look at the real small businesses. Non-employers are not included in here, so just be aware that this question was not asked of non-employers. And if you want to look at the really big companies, how are they being affected? You can get to that data as well. And this is what the data will look like. Oh my God, I know you weren't ready for this. This is what I have been working with in creating my data visualizations. This is data. I know that this is size A, so this is the smaller industries. Here is the question, and not only this one question, but how did they answer this question? Excellent, above average, average, below average, and poor. And then these up here, which corresponds to dates. Okay, these correspond with dates. To get to what those actual dates look at, you would click here on this lower tab. Oops, on the lower tab, and to the reference and collection dates. And you would want to have the last collection date is probably the one you want to have, because that was the date as the data you have of that date. And then so you have the collection date, then you have the distribution date. Give them a week or so to put the data together. So you have these 26 questions. You have a line for how each one was answered, and then you have the date. So you could either go across, the question, you can go across time, you can go across that question by size. It's just amazing what you could break this up. Now, I know this is a very, very busy slide, and I'm sorry, but I just wanted to let you know that this data is here. They are sampling 200,000, which is so much bigger than all those other ones. 200,000 establishments per year out of a 1.2 million that they're sampling. They're doing this as a bi-weekly panel of the core questions. Now, there were some extra questions added last year, which was about AI, and we're going to talk about that later. And then there's also another question that was, another question here that about work from home that we'll talk about a little bit later. But just realize it's just amazing what's out there. And if you click on the methodology, you're going to see an awful lot. Now, so again, they're looking at all businesses. Actually, this was from 2022 when they started from the small business pulse to September. But after September 23, they started looking at the bigger companies, not just the small size companies, but also companies that may have multiple units, not just one solo business, but you may be an owner and you have 3 different businesses, and they may be across state lines, or they may not be in the same sector or whatever. So those, you can see data with XX when you look at data. That's what it is. More than one NAICS, more than one states, more than one MSA. So not to overburden, that's one of the things they discovered in the small business force, fewer and fewer people responding to it. So if your business is chosen, you will only have to answer this 4 times a year. So they divide it up in that one, quarter. And so not everybody will have to answer this every 2 weeks. They divide it up. And so that's when it gets done. This is done out through email and then maybe mail letter. But anyway, cycle 2 right here is that artificial intelligence questionnaire that they were asked. The business trends and outlook survey is just, here's a very dense, but this is synopsis of what it is, what they looked at, how far did they go, and some of the quality measurements that you would have to look at. Now you'll notice that in some data, if you look at the data, the files, that they will have S. The S means that it was suppressed because they did not get enough of responses from that geography, from that sector, or from that whatever. So they may have suppressed it, or they may have gotten data that just didn't make any sense, and they just threw it out. But it's not, they're not going back and imputating. They're not going back and correcting anything. So the data that you see there is the best data that's going to come out. It's not going to change as time goes forward. Now, the reason why I said BTOS is because the BTOS includes the bigger companies. Like I said, it has the artificial intelligence supplement. It has the work from home supplement that just came out last month. It ended in February, and the data is already out there, and you could see the data from these, 200 and by the way, 200,000 companies. And then next year, it'll be another 200,000 companies. They do not want to overburden anyone. Throughout this past year, they did add whether the AI supplement, the work from home question was actually added. And the work from home supplement was that supplement has like a lot more questions than just the one, do you allow people to work from home? And the weather question was added this past year. So you won't be able to get multiple years of the weather, but you could get a good chunk of last year and going forward, the weather question. Like I said, there's a couple things that are out of scope. This information is experimental in the sense that it is not in data.census.gov. This is a great source that is not in data.census.gov because it hasn't been vetted by OMB, or for whatever reasons. That's my interpretation, but it's not there. And when we get to the web page, the visualizations cannot be downloaded. And so just be aware of that. But it is real-time data, not subject to corrections or editing. This is, oh geez, there's so much greatness to this thing. In the next 5 minutes, I'm going to talk about the artificial AI, artificial intelligence question. These questions are every single survey. You will get these 2 questions. Did you use it? And there's a definition. What do they mean by this? And it's not just, it's not just chat GDP, it's everything. It's visual agents, it's voice recognition, it's machine vision, it's all of these other things, including and predictive analytics. So it's a lot of people may think AI right now is chat GDP, but believe me, there has been industry with AI all along. So they say, did you use it in the last 6 months? And do you think you'll use it in the next 6 months? So just realize that this is yes or no, or I don't know. And so this data comes out. Now it's interesting. I looked at this. Remember, you can get it by state, sector. I'm looking at sector here, not subsector. Sector data, employment data, size of the business. I mean, should you target big business or lower business? So here is that big AI question, not chat GDP or that kind of artificial intelligence, for the professional and technical services, which is usually classified as the larger one. And you can see back in 2023, less than 10% of the businesses in this sector was using it. But now in 2025, we're up to 20% of the companies in this sector. But it has never caught up with what they believe will do it. And so there's always this promise, will you be using it in 6 months? Oh, yes, we will. Yes, we will. And so in 6 months from now, you expect it to be at that peak, but it isn't. It's a slow slog for acceptance of AI. Now, back in 20, over the winter break, they asked these supplemental questions, not just that, the 7 and 23 questions, but they had these additional 6 months questions. And you can download that data here. And so, by the way, the table that was before this is the citation or the reference in the citation to it. I'm going to go through these questions really fast. That's why I gave you. Oh, by the way, yes, if you could put in the BTOS slide now or link to it now, thank you. So if you want to go in and look at this data, you can go in and look at this data. I am not going to read these questions because there are so many of them, but I wanted to have them on the slide. So when you read your slides, you'll be able to go in and say, I really had a question. In the 6 months, will attacks currently be done by employees be using AI? Do we expect them tasks to be used by AI? And will the employees instead of performing by artificial, So these questions, you can go in and read these questions. I love question number 37. Why aren't you using AI? So you could look at the different industries or subsectors that are said, I'm not using AI, and you could see why aren't you using it. And then that way, if you're dealing with a company that's an AI company and they want to break into the United States, you can say, these are reasons why that this sector or this state or this MSA is not using artificial intelligence. And Bonnie in 2027 or 2024 wrote this great article. She analyzed, she got all of this data and she put it together. And this is the findings that she did using this AI data as a snapshot, the snapshot data from the BTOS. And this is a really interesting findings. And I've been told by her that that this data will that she's going to be doing this very same thing, looking at the work from home data. So that's going to be coming out soon. And if she wants to put in chat, if she, wants to say, when do you think you'll be coming out? That'd be great. Because when I asked her a couple of weeks ago, are you planning to do the same thing? She says, oh, yes, we're working on that right now. So they're working on it, but it comes out first as a working paper at the Census Bureau. Let's talk about work from home. Work from home data, like I said, was from November to January this year, released last month. And it looked at 1.2 million companies were asked, not just the panels, but everybody was asked this question. And so it's an additional 10 questions to work from home. The work from home, I showed you that data about the MSA data. That was, do you offer people from work from home now? And do you predict that you'll have work from home people in the future? That is the, and the data I showed you was just now. Do you allow it for now? And remember, it was Phoenix was the number one. But now you could look at all of these other questions that they asked. And, does your have a home policy? Do you have a policy for work from home? How do you monitor? Does your business monitor the activity of the employees who work from home? So these questions, I'm
10
sure
minutes,
some of your
Jennifer.
professors and some of your students may be looking for this information. So how do you get this data? I've talked about how wonderful it is. It's just how do you get this data? Well, you will have to know what the questions that you're looking for by number is really good. And then to get to the data, you'll have to know what file you should be looking at. Should you be looking at national data? Are you going to look at state data, MSA, sector, subsector, or employee data? So knowing that data, I said I was going to stop. I didn't. I'm sorry. I'll be stopping in another 5 minutes for questions. So knowing what type of data or what type of classification, business classification you're looking for, and knowing the question will help you be able to answer that. So again, I'm showing this, the known items, that it is experimental data, but I've been told by Census Bureau that they have been told that is not being eliminated. Sometimes things happen by this administration and you don't know it until the day of. But as of now, BTOS will continue because you need to have what is the current conditions in your state, in your industry. You need to know what those conditions are. So when something happens, that there is data now to measure against that baseline. So I'm really, really crossing my fingers. And please, if you have contact with a representative, please say that really important data is to keep the business trends and outlook survey. Just be aware this is as reported, and there's no edits in it. Okay, so let's talk about the data. When you go to the website, it's going to present to you what they call an index. And here is the index formula that they use. I want to look at the data. I don't want to look at an index, but just realize when you go to this website, to the Business Trends and Outlook Survey website, the visualizations will look like this page. Okay, and so these are index numbers looking at the performance. Is it going to go up or down? The current performance, future performance, current revenues, current demands. They expect the demands to go down. This is probably looking at national level data. And then down here, we could see sector level data. But to get to the actual data, you click on this thing that says downloads and documentations, and it will bring you to this page. And like I said, you need to know what kind of data or the classification of how you're going to use that data. And so you would say, I want national data. I want state data. I only want to look at the work from home data. So these things are all there. If you want to look at the work from home data at the subsector, I think that's national data only. I need to go. I'm not sure about that. Actually, I should have looked at that. But if you want to do a combination of subsector and MSA, then you're going to have to go to a federal data repository. So you click on this page, and this is what you get. This is state level data, because I know that because it says state up here. It doesn't say sector. For South Carolina, did your business experience loss? The answer is yes. 27% of the businesses lost revenue. How did they lose that revenue? Most of it, they're still recovering from the hurricane, or I don't think they got a new hurricane. But you could see in time how bad that hurricane still affected them. High winds. Let's look at the different every 2 weeks. This represents every 2 weeks. Snow and blizzard. I didn't know there was a blizzard. And ice, well, probably ice in South Carolina in the mountains. So you could go across time. You can go to say yes or no. You can go across how this was answered. Question 16 was what type of the weather event? And then, so here are the answers 1 through 6. So you take this data and you present that data. And that's what the data will look like. So get to know your data visualizations, because when I first put this data together, oh, I'm going to be looking at, the transportation sector in the last 2 weeks. Did you buy, increase, not change? What's the next 6 weeks? And so you look at this and you go, oh my God, this is awful looking. And so just be aware that when you're looking at data and you're doing data visualizations, it's best not to do more than 2 lines or 2 graphs unless they're really related.
Jennifer, you have 5 minutes.
Thank you. I asked her to do that to me because I knew I was going to come to the end. And actually, this is the last 2 slides. So again, know the type of question you're going for. Know the type of file you want, and then find your story. And the thing is, your story may be an operation story. It may be about revenues. Did you plan to open or close a business? Why not? What's the weather point? Was a supply chain? How is the performance for your industry in your town, in your state? These are all operation questions or production questions. And production includes not just manufacturing, but wholesaling. How's the inventory? How's the demand? What are the prices you're paying for? And what are the prices you're charging others? How is the interest rates? How are you using AI? Is AI being used in your town, in your industry, in your state? And then also, this is an employment. Is it an employment question? Is it employee size? Because this is one of the questions. How many employees? How many hours? Did they increase or decrease? Work from home. Do you offer work from home? Yes or no? And then you have the supplement of all the work from home questions. So when you hear the question about anytime you have somebody looking at operations, productions, or labor, think business trends and outlook survey, because there's data there, and so many faculty, they're not publishing in this. Very few people are publishing using the business trends and outlook survey. And if it's not being used, it's more likely to be cut. And I think after this talk, you could see the value, why the business trends and outlook survey is the best service that's out there, and it's not being used. So this is my plea to you. My action that I want you to do is to go out there and use it more often. And then if for those people who have the slides, here's some other things that I speak on. So at this point, Christy, what are the questions?
There are none right now in the chat, but if someone wants to ask one, we can certainly read those out.
I was said, leave time for questions. I tend to talk a lot. Bob Ray, make up something.
As
Corey.
always, you're a tour de force. You've covered everything imaginable, Jennifer. So.
Excellent. Corey's here, and he's from the Census. Well, he's saying nice things about me. Oh, you're working on another AI supplement. That is good to see. And the OMB does have to approve it, which means, oh my God, if the OMB is approving a survey that you're doing in 2016, that means there's data. That means there's money for you to continue. That is so wonderful. And listen more about the work. Please don't hesitate. Yeah. Oh yeah. Believe me, that one of the great things about working on federal government data. Oh, wait, Rob. Yeah. The great thing about working with federal government data is that there are public service servants on the other end, generally. There used to be. And they're so friendly, and they're so kind, and they're so responsive, because they want to know their work matters. And Corey, your work matters. Thank you. Okay, so there was a question.
Had her hand up. It went away, but.
No.
It was me. It's Robbie.
Good. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you, Jennifer. That was great. So I'm glad Corey is on here, because my comment is really, given that everything we're seeing and I came in a couple of minutes late, so you may have covered this at the beginning. I apologize. But given that we know a lot of data is kind of evaporating, and I know Bob Ray and his team at iAssist are trying to work on that, as well as you, Jennifer. Do we have any worries that this data is going to disappear? I'm thinking that because Corey just posted their planning on having some new data coming out that means y'all might be flying under the radar, but just love to hear anything about that.
Yeah, it looks like I asked, and so far, and if the OMB is saying, yeah, we're going to look at this, then I'm assuming the data will be coming out, but it is classified as experimental. It's experimental data because they haven't been given a budget to do this. They're taking this out of an experimental big pot. And so as long as the census has that money and people are using it, then hopefully it will continue. Carmen asked me the question about the slide 8. I did make all of those slides. So, I just went in and got that data. So, Annetta.
You had a microdata question.
Thank you. Yeah, so I posted this in chat too. So sometimes we have researchers, faculty especially, who want, microdata. So I guess this is for you and or Corey, if you know if microdata can be, made available to researchers. I'm thinking about like the, census microdata too, and the, in the major repositories and such. So that was my question.
Yeah, it's only in the federal depository statistical centers.
Okay.
So you have to be a sworn affidavit, you have to go through that process to get that data. So faculty are used to that.
Right, so it is available then in that way?
Yes, it is. I contacted them last November when I did this the first time.
Thank you.
And I made sure, like Georgetown is one of those centers, and I said, is it there? And I had them check. And they said, yes, that data is there. The microdata is there.
Okay, great. Because UCI is one of those data centers. That's why I wanted to ask. Thank you.
One last question from Trip, because we're out of time.
Okay, supply time microdata is in my Dutch. Does it exist where? In the federal depository system. But the thing is, look at the supply chain data that's from the BTOS. And that question is, across the state, across the MSAs that are in Florida, across the companies and the subsector data. So that data may be what you might want to look at.
Well, Jennifer, we are out of time, but I appreciate everything. Lots of information, and I'm glad you provided the slides because I'm going to have to go back and review them. That was so much. I'll turn it over to my co-chair, Nora, now to wrap us up.